UFC on Fox 5. I've seen I've seen today four ass whoopings. I haven't necessarily didn't see any good competitive fights, but I did see four ass whoopings, and I guess that's bad. I guess that's better than just four boring decisions. I think this is a good move by the UFC. They need to start putting, if they're gonna put cards on television, they have to put the best fights on free TV. Some of their best fights. That's going to be the only way they grow the sport. They catch that casual fan. Even though us MMA fans, we live in a bubble, and we think everybody will love the sport when they see it, but most people is just not into the grappling and into the wrestling. So and boxing is just more visually more pleasing to the eye, and so I think a lot of striking is a good thing. I think having Nate Diaz and Ben Henderson out there was a good idea because those guys can really throw hands. Um, the first fight, Ben, no, excuse me, Matt Brown versus Mike Swick. In this fight, I really felt bad for Mike Swick after he lost the fight, especially after his comeback. The tough road he's had and whatever. But he just I think in those early submission that Matt Brown had on Mike Swick early, I think that really took the energy out of him. I think you know Mike Swick down there fighting to get out of that submission really tired him out. I think he was really tired. I think his legs was tired. He looked tired after those submission attempts. They got to the feet, and I think that's what enabled Matt Brown to catch Mike Swick. Just unfortunate for situation for Mike Swick. I don't see him. I just don't really see Mike Swick being able to um, beat anybody significant at 170 or at 185. So I don't know what's next for him. But I congratulate Matt Brown. That's a good win for him. Rory McDonald versus BJ Penn. Wow. You know, BJ Penn said he wanted to start back fighting again, get back into into the talks of who's the greatest pound for pound or whatever. I guess that's okay motivation, but I don't think you should be motivated just by that alone. I think you have to have a more of a hunger for the sport and want to fight or whatever. And the big thing for BJ Penn has always been motivation. Um, that being said, everyone knew that Rory McDonald was going to win this fight. The guy, he's just way too big for BJ Penn. BJ Penn got to stop fighting these big guys. Period. I mean, if he's having you know it's tough because the guy is a badass. BJ Penn is a badass, and you look up to fighters like that. I really respect him. I don't care what anybody say. He shouldn't listen. He shouldn't listen to none of the haters out there because he's gonna go down as one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time. So his legacy is already locked in. It's locked down. You don't have to worry about that anymore. If that's the reason why he's fighting. What makes BJ Penn great is that he fights anybody. Um, this fight he was dominated almost every round. I mean, the first round was okay. He made some takedown attempts. He failed. Probably the only way he was going to beat Rory McDonald. But after that, man, McDonald just destroyed BJ Penn. I mean, If this was a boxing match, they would have called it. It would have been a technical knockout. The referee would have jumped in and stopped the fight. That's how bad it was. I mean, I just really felt bad seeing BJ Penn, a guy, a fighter that I admire and respect, getting beat up like that. I really feel bad for him. Uh, what's next for Rory McDonald? He said he wants to fight Carlos Condit. I think that'd be a great fight. I want to see that fight. Um, him avenge that fight. But 170 man is looking very good, and GSP he has a lot of good competition at 170. So um, that division is going to be very looking very good. Going to be action packed in the future. As for BJ Penn, I don't know. I mean, when BJ Penn, what happens with him too? He jumped to weight classes all the time too. So when he loses in the fight, I mean the bigger divisions, which 170, which he shouldn't be fighting at in anyway. Then he'll jump back down to the smaller weights. Then he'll lose at the smaller weights. Then he'll jump back up to the higher weights. So I think he should just stay at the lower division. And if he lose one, so what? Maybe he can get another win in there. But I just don't see what's on horizon for BJ Penn. But like I said, in my mind, he's already a legend. Who's next here? Gustafson versus Shogun. Um, the reach. You know, Gustafson is a real good talented guy. I can really see him developing more. I would like to see him fight more before you get to John Jones. I know, people may think that's crazy or whatever, but he basically dismantled Shogun tonight. I think Shogun, the only way for Shogun to win was to get Gustafson down. Gustafson pretty much did what he wanted to do tonight. He beat up Shogun. He didn't put a whooping as bad as John Jones did, but it was pretty close. Um, you know, he just, there's not much I can say. He just dominated the whole entire fight. What's next for Gustafsson? The Swede. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. I hope I am. But what's next for the Swede? I don't. I guess John Jones would be it. I would still like to see him fight a little bit more to get seasoned a little bit more. I just don't see Gustafsson, which would be a good fight, John Jones, Gustafsson, or whatever. But I still don't see him beating John Jones yet. I just don't see it. But it will be a competitive fight. I think that's a fight John Jones has to come prepared for, and I think he shouldn't fight the Swede injured either. You have to fight a guy like him 100%, or he's going to catch you and he's going to hurt you, or whatever. But good fight for him tonight. Congratulations. What's next for Shogun? you know, right now his fighting career has been up and down. He win one, he lose one, he win one. But mostly now he's been getting a lot of losses, a lot of L's. But he's still a good fighter. I mean, I think Kim and BJ Penn is in the same boat. I mean, these guys are both legendary fighters. Both are able and both are still skilled fighters. But I don't know if it's the motivation. I don't know if it's the divisions they in. If can they change training camps to help them? But I just don't see what's next for Shogun. Um, anyway, moving on. Um, the main event: Ben Henderson versus Nate Diaz. And you know, I saw the poll by the fans: 55 Nate Diaz, 45 Ben Henderson. Just goes to prove to show that a lot of MMA fans don't know what the hell they're talking about. People still pick fighters to win based on emotion. And if you looked at this fight logically on paper and just by watching both of the fighters' skill set, you would know that Ben Henderson was going to beat Nate Diaz. I mean, some could call it an impressive win for Ben Henderson, but it's not impressive to me because I knew he was going to do that. He was supposed to do what he did to Nate Diaz tonight because Nate Diaz is not in the same league as a Ben Henderson. He's just not. Um, Ben Henderson basically just beat Nate Diaz up all 5 rounds. I mean, he put a whooping on Nate Diaz. Um, I haven't seen no one ever put a whooping on Nate Diaz like Ben Henderson did. Um, very and very effective kicking the lead leg of Nate Diaz, and even punching it. I don't think I've ever seen no one effective in punching someone's lead leg, and actually knocking them down from punching their leg. I wouldn't advise it because you have a big thigh bone, and the thigh and the knee. Those are big, you know, bones, and hand bones is not nearly as big as those thigh bones is. I think a lot of fighters gotta be careful with that. Don't try that, because a lot of guys will break their hands trying to do something like that. But the real skilled guys can get away with it. I've seen John Jones do it. I've seen Anderson Silva do it. Um, yes, he was basically hitting with that lead leg. The close Nate Diaz ever got was with that early heel hook attempt. But Ben Henderson basically spinned out of it. It's an impressive win by Ben Henderson, but I think Ben Henderson, and a lot of his shots tonight, he was kind of swinging wildly. I think if it seemed like his a lot of his punches was a bit out of reach, and I think if some because he was really throwing hard haymakers, and if any number of those punches really had landed against Nate Diaz, I think he would have knocked Nate Diaz out. But I think what it was is that because of Nate Diaz's reach, he was Ben Henderson was kind of uh, reary about, kind of nervous about trying to go in there and throw those wild shots like that. So I noticed a lot of Ben Henderson's shots was clipping Nate Diaz's chin, was just on the outside. But he's just basically he dominated Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is not in Ben Henderson's league, but good night of fights. I still think that the UFC is should not is kind of running it like trying to present the UFC as a sport like basketball or football, like a team sport. I think that's a problem. I think that's a bad idea. I think they should focus more on being more combat oriented. Um, I think Dana White and a lot of MMA fans need to face fact that MMA will never be as big as football or ever come close as football. That's a pipe dream that never happened. I think the luckiest we can get is that maybe MMA can get more respect, become more respectable, and become as big, as have a cult following like hockey, does. Hockey doesn't get the big numbers as basketball or American football, but it still has a cult following, and it's still respected as a sport in this country. I think if MMA can get to that point, I think they've done well for themselves. I just don't see it getting any bigger than what it already is. Well, that's it for UFC on Fox 5. Um, can't wait to see the next card. That's my video. If you like what I said in the video, keep coming back because I will be making more. Peace.